So for the people that are going to watch this, would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself? Um,
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Spain, from the south of Spain, and I moved to the UK back in 2007. So it's going to be nearly 18 years now, and I came to study a PhD because back then in Spain I graduated as a industrial engineer, which is like a degree very generic, very multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
So you know a bit of everything, but not in depth of a particular subject. So for that purpose, then I study an MSc in aerodynamics of vehicles, which lasted 12 months. Then as soon as I finished that, I moved to the UK, pursuing my dream of working in F1. I was told that a path that could lead you to F1 with some degree of success or likelihood was studying a PhD, particularly in Imperial College. So I applied for it. I was chosen. I was picked up by a professor, and then I spent around 4 years doing a PhD. Just before I finished, McLaren hired me, and yeah, I finished my PhD. I defended my dissertation, my viva, as I was working in McLaren. Um, and then yeah, it's been now over 12 years since I've been in the business.
having looked through your LinkedIn, it's a very well, it's a serious resume you've got there. Um,
Cheers.
as someone that's worked across obviously multiple F1 teams, British F3 all the way up to McLaren and Williams. How different is the aerodynamics between the junior levels and then obviously the top levels, would you say?
No different at all. So very very similar with some degrees of variance, but very similar. In the end, uh, a junior um, level car, if it's open wheel racing, is governed by the same physics as a Formula One car. So any open wheel car with a front wing, a big platform, so-called floor,
Yeah.
and the rear wing, they are dominated by the very same flow physics and the same challenges. So anything to be learned um, in junior categories, you can say also from a student,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're applicable, uh, um, extrapolable to Formula One or any other open wheel racing category.
Yeah. I've always thought that. I mean, I personally, I started in aerospace. I went down that route initially, and then as my uncle was very into the racing, so that's why he pushed me down the route of watching F1. But it's always been something that I've liked the idea of. But I've never really gotten to the point of getting there because I've enjoyed watching it. But from my perspective in my career, where I live up north, so a lot of it's based down south. So I'm kind of potentially working way to get in there, but it's just building those skills. So
Yeah.
obviously, a lot of people will want to work in F1 from either seeing it or growing up with it or whatever. But looking back at your early career, what were the most potentially crucial steps that you took to achieve your dream, as you say?
I think joining a institution like Imperial,
Yeah.
which had or has a very large pedigree in collaborating with Formula One teams and delivering students or graduates to these companies. Um, I think that's it really. But then you happen to know that it's not the only one. Actually,
Yeah.
there are other institutions all around the UK, or if you want, also in Europe, or even the States, which have kind of delivered people to Formula One teams or other categories. So yeah, it's kind of getting into an institution that obviously has a good level of degrees in terms of quality and delivery, but also we found some kind of links to Formula One. Bear in mind that many senior people in Formula One teams, in one time or another, have been in a university.
Yeah.
Normally, um, British university. So they kind of carry with them contacts and know people and keep contact with former supervisors or whatnot. So there's always kind of a relationship between a number of universities. You can say Southampton, um, Bath, Bristol, Cambridge, Oxford, Oxford Brookes. That university delivers a lot of people in F1 through their master in motorsport engineering. Cranfield, for instance, and then in Italy there is a couple of in France, in Holland, um, in Sweden, so or the States. I don't know, MIT, for instance. So it just um, either be in the right place in the right moment, or maybe the right place. The moment, I don't think it matters much, uh, or just try to excel really. Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. I mean, either one way or another, if someone is brilliant and has the passion, the drive, the motivation and the determination to get into motorsport racing, um, I think sooner or later we'll get it there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about, I suppose, a lot of people expect it to happen instantly. I mean, I know I did. I work for a company called Raytheon, um, and before I got the position with them, I applied for multiple different places. And obviously, with such high um, interest and applications, whilst it may not happen first time, there's definitely, as long as the drive's there, I think, as you say, it's something that's always achievable. Um, but I mean, over the course of, what do you say, 12 years at McLaren, obviously you've progressed from a CFD engineer all the way up to a lead aerodynamics engineer. So over this time, how would you say that your role has evolved and changed?
Uh, it goes with experience, I guess. It goes with experience, I assume. So you start with being like a junior. You are given little responsibility so that you can get yourself trained and prepared and into the battle, as I call it. Then, as you grow experience and scars, then you are getting more and more responsibility. Either you're given it or you go for it, and and you just get growing and learning and maturing. And as you grow professionally, you start picking up projects with more and more responsibility, with more specific weight in the performance of the car. So it's a natural process, I think.
Yeah.
And eventually, you start learning that you can, or say that you can manage people and you can drive and coordinate a bunch of people to work together. Um, I think it's natural. It's a natural process.
Yeah.
And yeah, the more time you are in the business, the more you learn. If you change places, you go to one play from one team to another, then you start knowing different people, different cultures, different ways of working, of procedures, of tools. So that also enriches you a lot. Um, and then that gives you like wider view of how things operate in this business, and obviously that helps you out in terms of growing as a professional.
I think something you said there that was never really apparent to me, because when I first joined um, my first job, I was kind of expecting to learn more from succeeding than, as you said, the scars. I think for me, that was the biggest shock, is the scars, they come thick and fast at the start in terms of making those small mistakes. And it's the ability to learn from them, I think. And it's always good to hear from other people that, because obviously people do tend to disclose the fact that they've had these problems. Some people tend to put on that brave front, but from yourself and obviously from myself, I think that those scars were sometimes the biggest things that build the characters, or, as you say, build a personality and the experience to make sure you don't do them again. Um, the next question would be that, as obviously we've spoken, currently you are based in the factory, but I believe at one point you were trackside. So what is the
Yeah.
difference between obviously leading trackside and then leading in the factory?
Um, it's different actually. So it in trackside is about um having a lot of different things on your plate that you need to manage. Uh, you need to deal with different problems and different people or different profiles of people. You are given a concrete and defined task or set of tasks, and obviously you have to you want to do you're gonna give your best to fulfill them. But I think the difference is a dynamics that goes in waves. So there are periods of tranquility that you get yourself managing things and getting everything prepared, as in the calm before storm. And there is the rush of say after or before sessions, like practice sessions, qualifying and whatnot. And then you get a lot of workload on you. And then it comes a bit of calm again. Um, so that aspect of the workload being in very short frequency, in high amplitude levels, and then uh, the fact of having to deal with different of people of very different profiles, mechanics, senior engineers, um, fabricators, PR, you name it. In the factories, is a more steady pace. You have your deadlines. You have your uh, times that you want your projects to hit the wind tunnel schedule, uh, and then you manage yourself that kind of rhythm, that pace. Um, there are times where you want to get your last bit of performance from CFD to tunnel, and then you squeeze as many mm, geometries or runs or whatever uh, in your program to go to the wind tunnel. So that kind of makes you do long hours, but it's not, the frequency is more ample, and the workload sometimes is as large as in the on track, but generally it's not that much. It's more sustained,
Mhm.
perhaps not as intense.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, I'm assuming a lot of work is done in the off season, and then is there? Would you say that throughout the season, if there's things like crashes, does that obviously does the workload change in terms of the start of the season towards the middle of the season? What would you say would be the busiest period?
Would be when they are when we approach uh, deadlines that the design office, which is the part of the business that design the parts that actually are manufactured to the car, and go to the car. So there are certain deadlines for instance, there is a plan of targeting a certain race, uh, certain component. So they plan backwards. So how many weeks we need to have for this particular item to hit the track? How many weeks we need to have to manufacture this and do all the quality control processes and everything? And then from there, how many weeks we need to have to design to create the parts in CAD, so that then they can be sent to machining or prototyping or whatever. And before that, how much development time can we spend into creating those parts? So we work backwards, and it goes like that. So busiest times are when we know that in a week's time or so, there is a definition of the item that is intended to hit race number something, and we need to deliver as much performance as possible. Uh, that we need to deliver to the surfaces, to the design office, which convert the surface into actual parts in CAD world. Yeah. That's sent to manufacturing, and those that parts that are the necessary parts in CAD worlds then are actually manufacturing, having physical items.
Yeah. Um,
And periods of those, it depends on how many upgrades teams want to deliver within a season. Obviously, the first one, as in the date that are defined as the day we launch the car.
Mhm.
So that's probably the deadline, the most important deadline we need to target. And obviously, we want to start with as much developed as a car as possible. But yeah, that normally comes around October, November. And then there are a certain number of upgrades along the season, and for each upgrade, we have our deadline a few weeks before that we need to meet. And obviously, because we are greedy and we are competitors, we want to, in each of those upgrades, put in the surfaces that we deliver to eventually be manufactured as much performance in them as possible.
Yeah. So obviously, in the case that as you produce the car, you've got it to the track first day testing. What happens when it doesn't produce the required performance, or it's not as fast as you expected, or things like at the moment there's a lot of controversy about the flexi sort of bodywork, when they're bringing in new regulations to combat that. So is that something that you would take into account? So if you know that combating that is coming in, would you then change the strategy, or is the strategy always to use that up as much as possible, as you say, to the point where you can't use it and then redesign something to, comply?
It depends. We, as competitive people, we always try to not leave one stone unturned. Yeah, basically. So we go for we go for any margin of performance we can find. Obviously, always within the regulations.
Yeah.
There are certain rules that can be interpreted in different ways, but I don't think there's a member on any team with kind of malice in terms of um, breaching the rules.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, in the rules. Um, but if we find something which gives performance and is within the framework of the rules, um, we have internal discussions. There are some advocates. There are some people who push more.
Yeah.
And eventually an agreement is reached, and then we go all in one direction. Sometimes there are consultations to the FIA for reinforcement in a given interpretation. And then we decide whether we're going for it or not. But normally, the big gains are the concepts of the car. Things like wheelbase, position of the suspension pickup points, weight distribution, how the front wing sets up the flow going downstream, how the flow goes around the side pods.
Oh, yeah.
So those are the big concepts that eventually provide the most performance the car. Then you have the iterating, the refinement, the finding a little thing here, a little thing there, which all in all gives you performance steps, marginal performance steps, but all in all contribute a lot. But for having a flexi wing or something, you don't make a donkey become a racehorse.
Yeah.
That's probably the best analogy I can give. You create a racehorse from the beginning, with certain characteristics and certain behavior of the cars given by a certain concept, not by tweaking here and there or just scratching the last bit of performance in this place or another. So there is a lot of noise going around certain areas or aspects that, it gives you some performance, but it doesn't make you go from P10 to P1.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great analogy. You can't turn a donkey into a race.
No, racing horse is born,
Exactly.
not converted.
Yeah. So in terms of, obviously we've spoken about going to Imperial College, but would you say there was any other sort of skills or experiences that helped you maybe stand out when applying for these roles?
I want to believe that yes, I had doing some junior racing. Me as an engineer, particularly British Formula 3. I don't know if that helped, but that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
That opened my eyes in a way. That's kind of a miniature world of F1 in a way, and everything is the same dynamics, the same pace, the same rush, the same kind of demands, but in a much lower level, a lot less people.
Yeah.
So in a way, there is a lot of parallel aspects between both series, and I want to believe that. I like to believe that helped me shape my profile. Whether it helped in my CV or not, I'm not totally sure. Maybe, but I don't think that was critical. Then there is, as I said before, this Formula student experience.
Yeah.
Which is in a way similar. The competition is a bit different because in Formula 3, which I can talk by my experience, you actually compete. You go and try to reduce your lap time. You improve your position on the grid. Formula Student is more academic, more about understanding the processes, understanding what is required to design a car and to make it run. Although there is a lot of parallelism in terms of running departments or groups, different groups, aero, vehicle dynamics, marketing, this and that. That's all like in Formula 1. We've got all those departments with a lot more people.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of parallelism in that sense. When it comes to competition is a bit different, but it's still very useful and still very enriching. So yeah, that could be a good experience for anyone who would like in the future to have a career in motorsport.
That'd be great. So before I get to the next question, the question I had was, in terms of British F3, how did you find out about that opportunity? Was that something you were told about, or something you found out yourself, or?
I initially I wanted to get into Formula 2. Back then it was called GP2, and back in the south of Spain, where I'm from, not far from my place, back then there was a team which competed in GP2. I spent some years competing in Formula 2 as well. So I knocked the door, like with no any backing, as you say. Someone told me this guy was running this team, and it just knocked the door. I think I wrote an email, or I just went to the factory, or I think I actually, I think in Silverstone, I went to the GP2 Formula 2 paddock, which was kind of open for everyone, and just say, "Can I see your team principal or something?"
Yeah.
And I had a couple of conversations with this person, and he said, "Listen, you're studying a PhD, getting into a Formula 2 maybe is too much of a task. Find yourself something which is less demanding, that you cannot get distracted from your studies and still learn." I said, "You can try Formula 3, which is one level below back then GP2 or Formula 2. Um, and you may get a lot of experience and learning from, from that." So I just, again, sending emails, knocking doors to a number of Formula 3 teams, and eventually one said, "Oh, yeah, I might be interested in you." And that was it, really. Which is knocking doors with no backing or influential links or connections or anything, just knocking doors from an anonymous person.
So just all persistence, basically. Kept knocking and then
There has to, yeah, there has to be a lot of that. Yeah, one has to be very persistent, resilient, being prepared to have a no for an answer many times.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of answers one of my next questions, which would have been, how should aspiring engineers develop those practical skills that, if they don't have direct connections to motorsport? And as you say, I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there in terms of there's no harm in, it's probably a bit harder to knock on doors nowadays, but I'd probably say, reaching out through either LinkedIn or any other platforms you suggest maybe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is now a lot of channels. Um, but yeah, as long as you can show a genuine interest in participating in something, um, then I think people can understand you, can understand that,
Mhm.
and take you seriously. And then if you have a decent background, doesn't have to be brilliant, but having the will of um, wanting to learn, and wanting to grow, I think that's appreciated by teams when you don't have any experience. You're eager to learn, and you are eager to learn from your mistakes. Um, and I think that's I don't think it's a question of luck. I think it's a question of, as you said, perseverance.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think I think what a lot of people want to hear, because I know some people, as you say, find it hard to take that no for answer. And if you want to get into this sort of business, I think that is quite common, the answer. And you've just got to, as you say, persevering and get to the point. So in terms of, I'll say, looking for candidates, so if you're hiring or mentoring junior engineers, what qualities would you look for in either candidates or someone that you think would be worth your time?
Um, a few, I think, obviously passion,
Yeah.
because one has to be prepared to withstand a high level of stress, and if you don't have passion for what you do, it's very difficult. You can be strong, but strength reaches a certain point. Then beyond that, is of no use. So you have to be passionate about what you do, about what you want to achieve. Um, you have to have that drive. Resilience is an important factor as well, an important quality, because more often than not, you fail.
Yeah.
Failure is part of our job, and there's no such a thing as a 100% hit rate. So one learn through mistakes, and if there were mistakes, one wouldn't learn anything. So resilience is important to get knocked down and be able to get and stand up back again.
Mhm.
Obviously, there has to be an important level of academic knowledge, obviously, because in my discipline, aerodynamics, something that you need to have a certain background, a specific background. So if you have a solid background in aerodynamics, that's something that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of soft skills, I would say that passion, resilience, drive, and being able somehow to translate your academic background into actual work.
Yeah.
Because I've come across with people who are very brilliant. They know a lot about their stuff, academic speaking, but then they find it hard to materialize that knowledge into actual performance items, or items that increase the performance of a certain area of the car. So there is a bit of that. So practicality, I would call it as well.
Yeah. Being able to apply the skills that they've got. I think
Yeah.
it's a big thing. So, well, following on from that, after nearly 15 years probably in the business, how have you kept yourself passionate? Because obviously, over that period of time, many passions can die. So, in terms of yourself, what's
Yeah.
kept it going?
I think the will to win,
Yeah.
I'd say. Uh, Again, very few people are able to win either races or championships. So, but you learn, you understand that if everything goes right, there is a, a genuine, a legit chance of winning. So, and it hasn't been far. Sometimes I have won, many other times I have lost, or I haven't won. And just I think that's the fuel. I think that's the spark, or the flame. Just the fact of wanting to win. Sometimes is winning or defeating opponents from other teams.
Yeah.
Other times is uh, improving yourself. In the process, as in you are iterating on a concept, and you get a loop through CFD, wind tunnel, and whatnot, and you get a result which may be fruitful, and then you carry on, and then you find more gains, and so that's a process that you are kind of defeating yourself, as in you are winning, making you making you be better than what you were certain time before. So it is about auto or self improvement,
Mhm.
and also improving over and above the position. Yeah.
Yeah. So constant self improvement over time. So even with the setbacks, the well, what for you then has been the most rewarding part of your career?
Uh, I guess there was one which was seeing my parts on TV. Um, that perhaps is at the beginning of my career. Being able to see something that I created from scratch, that it didn't exist before. See it on TV, seeing it materialized and an actual functioning. It's then in retrospect, obviously with some pinch of salt, if you like, it's not very different. I mean, don't get me right. Don't get me wrong. It's very different, but there are some commonalities of to having a child. You know, having a child and seeing them thrive. So that sensation, I experienced it at the beginning of my career. It was a big rush of emotions when I saw my first car on TV, and uh, and that rush, that sensation still lives. Obviously, to certain different degrees. Um, that was very rewarding, and also I find rewarding uh, being on a team that has some certain uh, distance or gap to bridge to become better.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
in my current case, we finished past season P9 in the constructor championship. So I find that there is some margin to improve, and trying to improve upon P9 is all, I take it as a big motivation factor. What eventual P will be, I don't know, but the 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 drive is improving that P9,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also sometimes just showing myself that I'm capable of things that I didn't know I could do. I was so a bit of everything really.
Um, so I won't keep you much longer. I know you've had a long day, but so what advice would you give to students who are potentially looking at getting into the aerodynamics field or F1 in general, but they are kind of unsure on how to start that journey?
Um, Start the journey. That's pretty much it, really.
Yeah, by
If you do your homeworks, if you have worked hard in your degree to get not only the highest marks that you can, you've been able to, but also understanding what you have studied. Is one thing is studying just to pass the exams and get good marks in the exams. Another very different thing is to study for the sake of learning what you're studying. I think both are important because one is your uh, presentation letter, the marks, but what actually counts is what you have actually learned during those years in studying a certain discipline. And then others start knocking doors, uh, internships, graduate programs, working experiences. Um, don't get yourself boxed in or obsessed with Formula One. There are many other racing series from which one can learn a lot,
Yeah.
which is very applicable to eventually Formula One if that's what you want to get arrive in the end. So have a wide range of view of sight. Don't look only at F1 because there are many other series or racing formulae that can give you a lot of learning and uh, rewarding feeling that has not doesn't have to be necessarily F1.
Yeah.
And try and error. Again, be prepared to have a no as an answer very often, more often than not. But don't stop knocking doors. Apply for positions, which you never know. Sometimes the right situation comes across. I don't know if you are a junior. Normally, junior engineers are cheaper than uh, senior
Yeah.
engineers. That's life, really. So sometimes a team must and want to get a recruitment wave of juniors, and because they are they are an important workforce because they are fresh people with a lot of very eager to learn, which can provide and contribute a lot. At the same time, they are not as expensive as senior people.
Yeah.
So there's always that opportunity, and that happens continuously. It happens in my previous place. It happens in my current place. So there's no closed doors for people with little experience, because there's always the balance between cost and benefit.
Yeah.
And we have to admit it, that that always exists. That you can get certain level of resource for a given cost, or you can get another level of resource for a different cost. But sometimes the the scale goes in one direction or another, depending on the organization necessities.
Yeah, I think that's, well, a really good way of putting it. I think the people should never be discouraged from going after it. I think
Absolutely not. No.
as you say, I think one of the big things is passion. Is showing that you have that interest, because I know personally that for when I started mine, a lot of it comes down to, don't get me wrong, that piece of paper, that CV, can sometimes be the thing that gets you in the door. But once you're in that door, you've got to have something that differentiates, yourself from 500 other people that have all got the same sort of numbers. But finally, if you could work on the aerodynamics of any car ever, which one would it be and why?
I think cars pre 2009. I think maybe. From my view, I think they were cars people consider as ugly. But I wasn't in that era working in F1. But those cars fascinate me. The amount of complexity they carry is impressive. And if we had the level of freedom by the regulations that they had back then,
Mm-hmm.
with the knowledge and how much understanding we can extract from a given CFD run or a wind tunnel run, that would be really fun. Because back then the rules were a lot more open,
Yeah.
very free. But back then the technology, both wind tunnel and CFD, weren't as advanced as it is nowadays. So I think those cars had to be a lot of fun to develop them. Yeah.
Sound very nice as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, thank you for your time. I had, well, one straightforward question, which was, what was it like working for Gordon Murray? And I think that's
It was a very brief experience. Seeing Gordon Murray himself going around there, it was an interesting thing. The project itself was quite interesting. Um, I didn't have much to do or say. I was there as an operator. But obviously I have my ears perked up, and I try to learn as much as possible. And obviously when Murray talked, you listened.
Yeah.
And there was always a lot to learn from what he would say. So it was a very brief experience, but very, very enriching.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, especially after a long day.
Okay.
But yeah, it was lovely to speak to you. Hopefully I'll speak to you again soon. But if not, wish you all the best in life and the season.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you
you
very much, guys.
very much. So bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, fuck. What geez.